Sometimes buying and playing a game on a whim can pay off dividends. One such recent case for me was with Dustforce. If you had asked me before I started playing what I thought I'd be in for, I'd probably have told you I'd play it for a few hours, get my money's worth, see what it had to offer, then move on to something else. In reality, I ended up putting in 40 solid hours to get a perfect rank in the 4 main hub worlds, and there's even more still left for me to do should I ever feel up to the task. I feel confident, at this point, in saying that Dustforce is easily one of the most compelling and underrated platformers I've played, so I'd like to share my thoughts on why that is. The premise of Dustforce is communicated by the superb visual design, which tells you everything you need to know at a glance. The game stars janitors with ninja-like agility that need to clean up the dirt littering the various levels. In this, Dustforce is completely unpretentious. It has no further ambitions of a story, just a great excuse to get out there and start doing some platforming. There's no quirky humour to cringe at, and no generic cutscenes to endure. The concept of cleaning up areas is inherently satisfying, and the character sprites have fluid animation which sells the action. The idea here is that a level played well should look effortless both for the player and for the characters themselves. This is the incentive for playing Dustforce, getting that perfect run which works out after many failed attempts. You can tell that speedruns were a strong consideration for the development team thanks to the quick restart times, the ability to disable checkpoints, and a robust scoreboard with a replay attached to every player. It's the replay system in particular which helps elevate the game to new heights. Since score submission is automatic, and players have to submit a replay in order to submit their score, this forces the community to collaborate with one another, which in turn pushes the game to its limit. There's no way for a mysterious player to top the scoreboards without showing everyone else how they did it, leaving the door open for further improvement. This has resulted in some insanely tight and impressive runs for every level, showing what the mechanics are capable of. The gameplay mechanics are the heart of Dustforce, and a straightforward tutorial level does a great job of introducing players to the basics without feeling condescending. The deceptively simple combination of jumping, sweeping, climbing and dashing can lead to all sorts of combo potential, the most obvious and common of which is revealed in the tutorial. As with many platformers, landing on the ground will reset the player's jump, allowing them to regain their double jump, but Dustforce also includes some light combat mechanics which can be used to destroy enemies. Destroying an enemy while in the air will also reset the jump, meaning as long as there's enemies to destroy, the player can remain airborne. This simple mechanic drives much of Dustforce and makes many of the later levels into an impressive display of aerial control interspersed with more traditional platforming. There's a host of little subtleties as well which don't become immediately apparent. I won't reveal them all here since half of the enjoyment can be in the discovery, but the downwards boosting, which can be used even after an aerial dash, is just one of the ways advanced players can start to improve their speed. Even the simple sweeping attacks, which are explained right at the outset, can be used in creative or tricky ways to avoid having to run over certain places directly. These techniques, and a few others, ultimately result in the kind of replays the Dustforce levels are crying out for. All of the gameplay mechanics in the world won't save a platformer if the levels are bland, but Dustforce excels here as well. The early levels are simplistic and often lacking in hazards, but thanks to the cleaning mechanics they're usually a lot of fun to play anyway. Achieving a perfect rank with a respectable time is the real goal rather than just getting to the end. The way the ranking system works is another nice touch, with players simply being ranked on finesse and completion. As long as the player keeps a combo going for the whole level and never misses any dust, then they get a perfect rank. This is simple to understand, and means you can immediately tell when a run has dropped below the perfect rating. This means there's no need to play it out to the end if you'd rather restart straight away. It helps that many levels feel like they have a theme to them. For example, the early ascent level is all about moving upwards, whereas something like the archives is all about sliding. This gives the levels a sense of identity they might otherwise lack, and turns some of them into good training exercises for certain mechanics. Pretty quickly, the levels ramp up in difficulty and start mixing up the formula until the player is expected to weave many different techniques into a single run. This is where the game is at its best. I particularly appreciated how lengthy most of the levels were, as I feel like many modern platformers which purport to focus on challenging gameplay end up going for smaller areas with situations that can feel kinda gimmicky. If you're anything like me, you've probably gotten past some tough platforming sections in other games by sheer luck, or without really understanding what you did. The length of the levels ensures that Dustforce doesn't fall into that category. You could give a million monkeys a million keyboards for a million years, but they'll never beat the last level of Dustforce. Neither will I, but that's besides the point. In Dustforce, I always understood why I got that perfect run in the end, and felt I had a decent chance of being able to repeat it. In the process, there was many deaths along the way, but the experience seems to have been crafted with this in mind. There's nothing obnoxious about dying, and the enemies are mostly passive. The visuals have a simplistic charm, and the music is usually quite serene. The soothing soundtrack stands in contrast to the high-velocity, challenging action as a way of mitigating frustration. Rather than using the visuals or sound to gloat about how hardcore the game is or laugh at you for your failures, Dustforce uses them to keep you calm. When you die, it doesn't judge you, but it doesn't particularly encourage you either. The music keeps playing on like nothing happened, and the action starts right away without any fuss. I found this indifference to my performance was very good at keeping me playing. I must have died hundreds of times on some levels, but I barely felt it at all, which is the best possible outcome a game like this can ask for. So it's time for the question: why do I think Dustforce is underrated? Well, to begin, I suppose I should mention that the developers posted some in-depth sales figures on their site, which is a good read for anyone interested in independent games development. The gist of it all is they made enough money to support them while they make their next game, but it's clear they didn't become a massive hit either. I think the team deserved to earn more money from Dustforce considering its quality, but mostly it deserved more recognition. Many reviewers were harsh towards the game, thanks to its steep difficulty. Now, it's not my place, nor would I want it to be my place, to decide how games should be reviewed or what scores they deserve, but the attitude present in many reviews seems to be hypocritical. Lots of reviewers seem to think that marking this game down for having steep difficulty is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, but I disagree. The Hitbox team knew they were making a game designed to appeal to the speedrunning community. It only takes a few minutes of play, or even watching a video to realise that. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2 levels, the game they crafted is challenging in all the right ways. So judging the game by what the team set out to achieve, I'd say it's a resounding success. That said, I understand that most reviews exist to inform potential buyers if the game is right for them. In those circumstances, it might seem reasonable to reduce Dustforce's score since there's a lot of people out there that won't find that kind of challenge appealing. It becomes hypocritical and unfair when many of the same reviewers will give games that provide no challenge whatsoever fantastic scores. Those games which provide little to no challenge can be very good in their own right. Some of my favourite games fall into that category. But there's also many people out there who have no interest in them whatsoever. So if a reviewer is going to mark a game down since the challenge may not appeal to everyone, then it seems only fair to me that they should also do the same when a game lacks challenge as well. Challenge is a two-way street, and no game is going to appeal to everyone perfectly, so I'd like to see reviewers act more consistently one way or the other. I know I'm glad that the developers were willing to craft such challenging levels. There's more than a few parts of Dustforce which I once thought I'd never accomplish that I can now do regularly. If they had coddled me more, I might never have known the satisfaction of overcoming some of the fantastic hurdles the game threw at me. That said, I suppose in hindsight, perhaps the developers should have put a few more easy levels in at the start, so unskilled players who aren't willing to commit time at least feel like they got some use out of it. Normally I'd be against appealing to the lowest common denominator, but the easier levels in Dustforce can still be great to play even once you're used to the mechanics. The focus on speed and perfection means there's always some improvement to be made here or there to climb that little bit higher on the scoreboard. I found myself occasionally going back to the more simple levels as a break between trying the more difficult stuff, and I certainly wouldn't have complained had there been a few more of them. The concerns about difficulty are only half the problem though. The other reason Dustforce didn't get more attention was because of the oversaturation of the 2D platformer genre. Independent developers have been using this as their go-to genre for years. It stands to reason, with so many developers producing games in the same category, that many of them simply won't be very good. A deluge of mediocre titles makes it harder for the good stuff to stand out. It's a shame that this could have negatively impacted sales, even though it's completely out of the developer's control. I suppose this puts the onus on us, as players, to spread the word about great independent games. If we can all help the cream rise to the top, then we'll all collectively benefit from better games in the long term too. There's a whole heap of other platformers I could have chosen to play the day I booted up Dustforce for the first time. It could have easily been one of those other games instead, but as chance would have it I happened to pick a good one. It makes me wonder how many people there still are who would love the game if only they gave it a shot. I heard about it right when it released, but I only started playing it recently. For those 2 years it had been hiding in plain sight. If anything I've said so far about Dustforce interests you, then I urge you not to make the same mistake of overlooking it.